Welcome to Stories in AI. How are you, Dipu?
Fine, thank you, Ganesh. And speaking to you, makes me feel even better.
That's amazing. You're so kind. Thank you so much. I know it's late. Thanks for staying up and getting on this thing. I'm gonna go right into it. We have a lot of topics to cover. I would love to pick your brain on a bunch of different things. So why don't you start off with giving us your story, your personal story, and your journey into AI and technology?
Yeah. Thanks, Ganesh. I think it's always a good way to start with, a personal journey. So I am basically from Bangalore, and after doing my graduation from IIM Lucknow, I worked with G Capital for 20 years. And in G Capital, one of my main stints was in the area of digital transformation. Where I got introduced to AI, and then I carried that forward when I joined Bajaj Allianz 5 years ago. And in my current role, wherein my key mandate is to drive digital transformation. AI is at the center of everything that we do, and that's how AI is an integral part of my life. And happy to talk more about it, as we go through our conversation.
No, it's amazing. Well, I'd love to. This is a show about AI, and we started this conversation, or we started the show, the stories in AI, with a way to inspire people and more folks into the fold with AI. Right? We learn from others, learn from leaders like you, from experiences like yours, and then get into the fold and be part of the revolution that's happening. Right? So, tell us about the industry itself, right? So you've been in the financial services industry with G Digital, G Capital, and now at Bajaj Allianz. How is the shape of the industry changing with these frontier technologies like AI? I know you're also into blockchain and a few other frontier technologies too. Give us a view of how do you see it and what do you see happening?
Yeah. Ganesh, interestingly, technology, whether in the form of AI or blockchain or any other state of the art, technology that we see, has obviously made a dent, in the industry. Initially, the industry did go the digitization route, and that's what we've seen many firms, where we've seen AI come to the fore. And I think when COVID-19 happened, it was a global unplanned UAT, as one of my friends colorfully put it. And then I think all customers, all partners, right? I think everybody had to come on board, and then I think it became a point of inflection. So today, if you look at the current way of working, not just the way of working, but even the way of living, right? It's largely digital. And for example, if you look at the way customers are getting serviced, AI, is at the center of everything that we do because a lot of servicing is digital. Similarly, if you look at the entire landscape and if you look at, all transactions, from policy issuance to claims to renewals, you have AI cutting across, various processes. So that's how the industry, has taken to AI. And I think the future is very bright, for AI, as we emerge into the new normal, in whatever form and shape, that new normal, is in.
Interesting. No, it's actually, so 2000, 2020 and the pandemic, definitely. I love what you said. It's a unplanned UAT for all the organizations to grow up pretty quickly, right? But, the reality is I'm sure it was a harsh transformation for most organizations, right? They were not everybody were prepared for it. It also was not really, the most pleasant time to actually do those transformations. The changes were everywhere. People and their lives were being appended and so forth through, right? Give us some examples. I've been actually following some of the work that you did specifically on customer experience, touchless experiences in the middle of COVID, including like, some of the amazing work that, you were doing in terms of the socially responsible work. So give us a view of like what you specifically and Bajaj Alliance have been doing in the last, 18 months or so.
Yeah. Thanks, Ganesh. I think history will get reset, from AC and I'm sorry, BC and AD, into before COVID and after COVID. So what we did, during COVID, we had gone on the digital journey, much in advance of COVID-19 because obviously you can't transform overnight. But what COVID did was, it gave a huge fillip, to our entire, digital servicing drive. So specifically from customers, because that's what you asked. Firstly, what we did, Ganesh, was we embarked on a massive communication blitzkrieg because we normally underrate communication. It's very important to reach out to customers and tell them saying that even if there is a lockdown, even if contact centers are shut, you can reach out to us using a plethora of digital tools. And I think the good thing is, we were able to ensure that this switch happened without a single glitch because our customer grievance ratio at that time, when we tapped it, it actually came down by a whopping 90%, which just goes to show that the customers, were extremely comfortable, with our digital journeys. So I think our entire effort in terms of, making it
Was
Seamless.
it also because you were more prepared than most other organizations?
Yes, we were. We were absolutely prepared because our digitization drive, as I told you, was was much in advance of COVID-19, and and we were able to ensure that customer servicing in a completely uninterrupted manner through the usage of our bots, WhatsApp, mobile apps, and customer portals. And even today, the combination of man and machine continues. And since COVID-19 also made people very wary of touch, nobody wanted to press the button in the ATM or the key in the elevator. What we did was, we basically ensured that our UI UX became touchless. So on the one hand, when customers walked into our branches, we told them to just scan QR codes, and then a URL would open up, and they could carry out their request for fulfillment. And at the other end of the spectrum, what we also did was we integrated our bot with Alexa and Google Assistant. So which meant voice based servicing. So if an Alexa at home, you could just say, Alexa, can I get a copy of my insurance policy? Alexa would speak to our bot, and the bot would then send the policy copy to registered email ID. So I think through a combination of strong technology and digital intervention across the entire life cycle, and of course empathy and a healing touch, which is also required. We were really up to it, and we did not just survive, but we actually thrived through the entire COVID-19 period.
That's amazing. Can you touch upon, like you mentioned a few times, right? One is the pairing of humans and machines. It's a fundamental tenet. I believe in that too, right? In terms of AI should have been augmented intelligence, not so much artificial. There's nothing artificial about it. And you mentioned empathy and stuff like that. And you've talked about, and I've listened to you talk about putting the customer experience in the center of everything, right? Before you actually start detailing out, hey, here's a bot technology, how can I use it? Here's NLP, how can I use it, right? Can you talk to a little bit about that customer first approach that your organization took?
Yeah, sure, Ganesh. In fact, what I've done is, combine my, Lean Six Sigma expertise in G, with a customer first approach to adopt what we call a five-step process. So what we don't do, Ganesh, is, come out with the digital solution as the first step. Our first step is to listen to customers. And while it may sound cliched, if you miss this crucial step, you could end up barking up the wrong tree. So what we do is, one, of course, we get customer feedback. We've been in existence for 2 decades, so we have plenty of customer feedback coming in. And the other is we also conduct focus group discussions and net promoter score surveys, to get feedback from customers, which is research based. So through a combination of proactive and reactive feedback, we get an understanding of customer needs. Now the second step, which is very important, is once you get customer feedback, it's important to go through that to figure out not only customers' stated needs, but also the latent, unarticulated needs of customers. Because many customers have needs which they can't articulate, and I'll explain unstated needs, with some examples as we go through our conversation. Then the third step, once we do this, is to basically take an inventory of our current landscape of, processes and systems. And typically we would find, across organizations that processes were initially set up keeping the department as the center of everything that we do. If a customer goes to a universal organization, he's not going to find a customer centric, model, right? He'll be asked to go from one department to the other depending on his needs. So then the fourth step, using Lean Six Sigma, is to re-engineer this entire landscape and make it as lean and customer centric as possible. And then the fifth step, which could be the first step for many organizations, is only then, that you launch the live, digital solution. Now, when you launch the digital solution, what is very important is whether it is AI, whether it is IoT, whether it is blockchain, it's very important not to get, caught up with, the latest buzzword in town. Because sometimes the best solution is the simplest solution. The solution has to fit the need and not the other way around. So I think by doing this five-step process, we have not only ensured customer first, but we have also ensured that we use technology exactly where the need is felt, which is why in whatever deployments we have had, we have hardly had any rollback. We've only been able to take them forward.
No, it's amazing, Dipu. And if I summarize it, right, like one is start with the customer, like
Right.
definitely ensure that you center everything, like you said, around the customer. Then you actually understand the business process outcomes you're looking for and the input that you have to put in. And then after you engineer or re-engineer that, then look at what are the fitting technologies that you can actually drive that, right? It's pretty amazing that you right, more than just the theory, because there is a huge value realization gap in technologies like AI today and across the industry, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
more so we see it's not so much the lack of technology not working, but it's about the business outcome focus didn't really happen, or you didn't really think about, okay, what am I really trying to do? You started with, I have a piece of technology, let's make this work. And
Right.
instead of taking a top down approach, you took a bottoms up approach on it, right?
Right.
Um, Talk to a little bit on the understanding the customer aspect, right? And you said the stated needs and the unstated needs, right?
Yeah.
So how do you identify that? Is that an opportunity to engage machines and algorithms to do that too?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ganesh, and I'll tell you how we do that. As I said, the first step, is collation of customer feedback through whatever means we have at our disposal, and then it goes back to your classic, reading between the lines ability. So, for example, let's say when customers write to us, right now, customers would write to us, saying that can you help me with my health insurance? And very often, customers add a context. The context could be that nowadays I'm not able to go to hospitals. Either there is a lockdown, or the healthcare system in general is prioritizing COVID-19. Now, when you look at the context, right, and that's why I said, you don't look only at the stated problem. You look at the context. Then you figure out, that there is an opportunity to help customers here. So, for example, let's take this example itself. Customers can't go to hospitals, right? Now, what we did, we came out with a very simple digital solution, but very effective. So we told customers, we can help you out here. We are, of course, an insurance company, and we are in health insurance. So we have an empanel set of doctors. So we came out with a very simple tool called Doctor on Chat. All customers had to do was to log in using our mobile app, and then, get into a video or a chat, or a voice consultation, with our doctors. And doctors would give them their, advice, right? It's all digital consultation. And then all you need to do is just to go and buy medicines. And medical stores were always exempt, right, from any form of lockdown. So customers just loved it. Similarly, when people were very wary of COVID-19 in the initial stages, and they wanted to, get themselves tested. Now, ironically, you don't want to go to hospital, because in the quest to get tested, you can get infected, because hospitals are hotbeds of infection. So what we did, we came out with an AI-driven bot by which customers could could test themselves, and we offered this in multiple languages. The adoption was amazing. It just kicked off instantaneously. And then we got a lot of positive feedback from customers, giving us a doctor on chat option, or giving us a COVID-19 self-assessment tool. It's not the exclusive preserve of insurers, and it's also not a primary product. But I think the fact that we met unstated needs gave us a lot of goodwill with our customers. And when we got an independent NPS study done through a third party market research agency, we found that we enjoyed the highest scores in the marketplace.
That is amazing. That's a what a beautiful story. I think, a few things, right? One is simplicity, Occam's razor, right? Making sure that most of the complex problems usually have the most simplest solutions,
Right.
and the importance of actually what you called out. What I really liked is, and some of these things around, how do you really delight customers, and it's often hidden in the context of their communication, not in the communication itself, right? So
Yes. Yes.
and
Yeah.
those are the opportunity for you to actually use powerful machine learning and stuff. Now, one of the things that this also did last year was it changed the way we all work, right? Our employees, the engineers who are working on these products, the servicing people and stuff. I know you did some work on, the virtual service rep, or some work where you paired both humans and machines to deliver better service and also delivered a better experience for employees, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So two aspects there, Ganesh. One is in terms of how we leverage the combination of man and machine. So, for example, let's start with the AI-driven bot. Now, the AI-driven bot can be taught based on all our experiences. Let's say till yesterday, right? But human beings being human beings, right? There are customers who can throw up some unprecedented questions, right? And what we have seen, NPS studies show that customers want a one-step solution. The NPS can be as high as 96. Just break it into two steps, it can fall down to 65. Now, you don't want a customer being told by a bot, I'm sorry, I can't answer this query. Why don't you just call up the call center, or why don't you go to the website, or why don't you, use any other means? So what happens here is, in a seamless manner, the query gets transferred from the bot to a human being. So we deployed, assisted automation. The customer is told, I'm transferring it to a human being because we are transparent. Then the human being takes over and takes it through to completion. From a customer's perspective, it's seamless. The bot answered, the initial queries. When it could not answer, it went to the human being. And at back end, what we do is we maintain an inventory of all these, unanswered queries. And then on a periodic basis, using AI and NLP, we keep teaching the bot. So the bot is learning all the time, and its own percentage of first time query resolution is on the increase. So that was on the combination of man and machine. And now coming to your point around how did we manage employees during this pandemic, because we all talk about customers, but at the end of the day we also have to manage employees, right? Because they are the ones who are actually there serving customers and transacting day in and day out. What we did, Ganesh, was we basically converted adversity into opportunity, and I'll tell you how we did that. We realized that people are at home, and they're all basically socially and physically distanced, but we needed to keep them digitally and emotionally connected. So what we did was we said, when you have employee engagement in the office, you only include employees, right? But now that they're working at home, why don't you include families, right? And I think that one step, went a long way. So, for example, we had a weekend master chef, and we opened it up not only to employees but even to their, family members. So, somebody's wife, somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, all of them, and it was done on WhatsApp, right? They all started posting, mouth-watering recipes and photographs of their dishes, and then we announced prizes. Similarly, on Mother's Day, we had a live concert organized by mothers, and only mothers were participants. So the classic democracy definition of mothers, by mothers, for mothers, right, turned out to be a huge hit. Then we had digital painting competitions, digital singing competitions where families were involved. And when we got employee engagement scores, and I think we stood out in this regard, ironically our employee engagement scores during the pandemic turned out to be higher than our scores pre-pandemic because families were involved. So I think it just went a long way. Our employees were absolutely motivated. So I think keeping motivated employees and using a good combination of man and machine, helped us tide over this.
No, it's the one thing that really stands out, Dipu, in all the approaches you're mentioning is the focus on simple solutions, the
Yeah,
focus on, focusing on the solution than on the technology layer itself, right? I mean, that's just,
yes,
it's coming out very, very clearly. And
right.
let's talk about like the industry in general, right? So the insurance industry, insure tech industry. I mean, you're too big. You have servicing on one end, and you have underwriting on the other, right? The two big. I mean, there are other things too, but the things that drive the business, if you will, right? um, it's one of the oldest industries, and there is a lot of. I think the last few years we've actually seen a lot of things. But in general, how do you think the state of digital transformation, the state of adoption of technology like AI has been in the insurance industry?
Yeah. Ganesh, I think it's it's a fundamental question, and I think if you had asked people before the pandemic, I think you would have had a lot of queries where you could have said that the jury is still out, and we can keep debating till the cows come home. But I think especially after the pandemic has set in, I think AI has established itself firmly. And you spoke about underwriting and servicing, so I'll give you some examples on both these fronts. Firstly, if you look at servicing, right, we have had AI driven bots clearly kick in and ensure that they give the same level of service to the extent that today, in fact, it's not just about usage of AI, but Ganesh, I think we're now also moving to a stage where we're moving from not just it's not just about digitizing the physical, but it's also about humanizing the digital, right? How do you make AI more human centric? Because ultimately AI is science. So how do you blend these science of AI with the art of customer centricity, to make it human centric AI? Therefore, bringing in conversational AI, ensuring that bots start mimicking human beings, so on and so forth. So if you are in that stage, it obviously shows AI has established itself. Similarly, coming to underwriting, and there I'll bring in data and analytics. I think what a lot of people sometimes don't remember is that we have somebody known as the actuary in the insurance industry. He's the original data scientist. The only difference was everything was in his head, right? Whereas today when you talk about data and analytics, now you talk about platforms, right? So if you look at underwriting, AI is AI plays a significant role. Now the classic problem that sometimes firms face is the underwriting model can be a one size fits all model. So when AI comes in, you can slice and dice, and you can get as granular as possible, and then you're able to give a far sharper solution, right? So I think clearly that's an area which comes in, right? Because pricing can be complex. You could have several pricing models, right? And you may look at loss ratios across locations, across various segments, right? So AI is clearly coming in. Similarly, if you look at a lot of the roles performed by actuaries and underwriters, right? Some of the very complex transactions, as AI kicks in, not only are you able to ensure that your time to market has reduced dramatically, but also you're able to come out with solutions which were not possible before, before the advent of AI. So that way, I think it's firmly established itself, and I think going forward, I think I mean AI is going to be it's going to be intricately linked with insurance.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's a really good way you touched upon a lot of things, and I don't even know where to go from there because there's so many open threads I have. One of the things I've been actually always wondered about is like the lemonade example, right? How they came in from, where especially I mean most places in underwriting takes time. Either the actuary is maybe on vacation, it's things in his head. yes, you have models and algorithms and statistics that help you get to some level of things, but at least for the last, I'm not an expert in the industry, so, but I've seen this, the need for people are all looking for instant gratification right now, right? So as servicing, when you're actually trying to get a quote for insurance, I want it now. I don't have time for you to actually go and call your actuary and work on this and publish it and give it to me. So what I've seen honestly is this move towards underwriting to the edge, right? How do you get it closer and closer to the customer, integrated within servicing? So that also gives you, if you're doing a lot of servicing, it gives you opportunities to upsell, cross sell, and do other things too, right? When you can make quick decisions. um, what have you seen in that space? I mean, is this helping? Like, are we still where we are trying to make intelligent systems learn from actuaries now? Once that is done, you can move it to the edge. Where do you see this happen right now?
I think Ganesh, you didn't ask me a query. You answered your own query. So I think that's precisely what's happening. What you mentioned about moving to the edge, because I think the whole idea is that if you are able to empower the customer, and if you are able to ensure that the customer has not only the information at his fingertips, but he is able to carry out transactions at his end. I think that's clearly what firms need to focus on. Because Ganesh, if you look at various models today, the days of asking the customer to submit some information, then you submit it via this nervous system or the nerve system to a central repository, then they will churn out an output and you go back to the customer. I don't think today's customers are in tune with those models, right? Because that's one status quo which is getting busted. So clearly it's about taking decisions as much as possible to the edge. However, we should keep one thing in context here, Ganesh, that especially in insurance, unlike a lot of products, it's a push product, it's not a pull product. You still need to convince customers, and there is a reason for that. As human beings, how we are wired. When you wake up in the morning, nobody thinks, oh, you know what, I'm going to crash my car today, or I'm going to fall unwell, I'm going to fall ill, and then I'm going to go to the hospital. Because insurance is something which you think of only when you go through your tough times, because ultimately you buy it because you want to file a claim and claim reimbursement at the right, at the time when it is required. So insurance happens through what we call a conversational sale. You need to have a conversation, with customers. So which is why, you still find, a lot of, human touch in insurance. And that's why the business also continues to be distribution led. If you look at various global markets, the direct business, where it's directly between the consumer and the end carrier, it's limited. It's largely through distribution, whether it's brokers, banks, the traditional agent, e-commerce partners, you have various forms of distribution, it's still distribution led. So to that extent, you'll have this human touch when it comes to selling. But at the same point that we discussed, right, you enjoy conversations and everything else has to be automated. That is where this entire thing will kick in. So you make the sale, but you'd like to automate everything else. And I think your own model is the best example of how it can possibly run.
Yeah, no, it's actually true, right? I mean, I really wish, I mean, not wish, I think we are going into a world where, it's a bot for everyone, like the RPA companies say, right? But it's an intelligent agent. Everybody have their own Jarvis suits that'll just do all the things that you don't want to do, right? And you can just automate all of that. And then you can just focus on the things that you really enjoy, that's meaningful, that's high impact, and so forth. Now, this has been a fascinating thing. One question, one more question on Bajaj Allianz and what you are doing in this thing, right? Talk to me about your organizational approach to setting up this technology capability and the customer centric capability, right? Can you give us a glimpse on how did you actually, I know it wasn't the 18-month journey, it's probably started before that, right? But AI, and especially technologies like machine learning, is a team sport. There's multiple people involved. I can very well see that you have a design person in the center of everything. uh, but explain to us your approach on how do you get the team together to go make this all this possible.
Yeah. It's a very interesting question, Ganesh, and I think you're basically talking about the whole approach to AI, right? How do you basically go about institutionalizing it? So Ganesh, if you look at how a lot of insurance companies were established, right? They were, as you said, insurance is one of the oldest businesses globally, and I think a lot of them, and that's where we also come in. You basically start with what's available, right? So which means over a period of time, it becomes a legacy system, right? Because the firm's at least 20 years old, right? Started with the best system, when it started, but over a period of time, right? Because it acquires bells and whistles, and then over a period of time, you realize the need to replace it. So that's one. So one thing which we have done, Ganesh, is we have also gone for a core transformation. Our core platform, we are right now in the middle of that journey. We've already migrated two large lines of business, and we are migrating, other lines of business as we go along. So that's one thing, because that's at the center of everything that we do. The other thing which we have done is, apart from our core transformation, we have also basically moved to the cloud. We have hosted it on the cloud, and that's a significant step which we took, because standard benefits. You want to avoid hardware obsolescence. You want to move from siloed data marts to a single data lake, right? All the standard benefits, which you get when you move to the cloud, right? But I guess we were in the news because we were one of the first players to transform the core and simultaneously host it on the cloud. So that was the second step. The third is, then apart from the core and moving to the cloud, we also have these large satellite systems. So for example, let's take our customer relationship management software, right? Our middleware. So that again, we basically revamped recently, just before COVID-19, and it really helped us during the entire COVID-19 phase. And then when it comes to AI, we have a lot of, we have a lot of them, which are customer facing, like our bots and portals. And we also have a lot of automation in the back office. So for example, we use RPA in our back office. So this is our landscape, right? And as I said, over a period of time, we, kind of kept reinventing ourselves. Now, to your point around, how do we go about doing this? As we said, what we do is we start with the customer, and then based on GE, my experience in GE, we basically classify, any business case which we build into three buckets. One is we look at what we call soft metrics. The soft metrics are the obvious ones, right? Maybe your turnaround time comes down. Maybe your customer grievance ratio, reduces, right? Maybe you get, a real time, fulfillment. So you get all those which are obvious benefits from the new technology which comes in. That's one. The other is what we call hard benefits, and this is where the classic capex versus opex discussion happens, right? You indulge in capex today, but it plays itself out through OPEX savings over millions of transactions over a period of time. And lastly, you look at a CVA positive, equation. And the third thing, Ganesh, and that's no slightly intangible. That's where we start to look at brand. So, for example, we take pride in the fact that we have been the player with the highest NPS scores in the marketplace, which is done to a third-party agency, and also the lowest grievances, which is tracked by the regulator. So, from both perspectives, and both are third parties, right? As in, not it's not just that we ourselves measure it. So then we look at the impact on the brand. So I think a combination of soft metrics, hard metrics, and brand, the intangibles. I think we use this to kind of get everybody on board. And one more thing, one strategy which I have deployed, to the point that you made, I think very often initiatives don't see the light of day because the heavy lifting is not done upfront. You need to do the heavy lifting upfront. You need to figure out who are the stakeholders who will be for the project, who are the stakeholders who will have opposition, how do you handle objection handling, so on and so forth, so that by the time you come closer and closer to the launch, everybody is aligned. So I think this is our strategy, which has worked for us.
That's amazing. I mean, I love the way you split out the metrics around soft metrics, hard metrics, and then more strategic brand related
Right.
values, right? And one of the areas that I've been exploring deeply is like there is a lot of the pace of technology led transformations have grown so much that somewhere down the line where it's getting harder and harder for us to track the metrics, the hard metrics especially, and its impact. I mean, can you just like you would do in a stock market, right? In your trading system, you'll do some what if analysis, you'll do some analysis on, okay, let me back test it and say, how does this strategy play out, right? I really think there is an opportunity because technology is now part of your operating system for organizations,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
I believe that that's an area. So let me flip the question back to you. It wasn't a question, but then my question to you is, what's one problem you would like everybody in the industry in data and AI to focus on that'll help you and your organization?
Yeah. I think, Ganesh, there are two aspects. I think since you spoke about data and AI, I think from a data perspective, I think it's about ensuring that we get data. And I think one of the primary problems of the industry, is to get holistic data, because it's distribution led, and very often it's a B2B2C model. It's not necessarily a B2C model. So from that perspective, how do you get full data? Sometimes you may find that you have minimal data, right? So I think access to data, I think itself is clearly a problem, or rather, wish list, for the entire industry. Coming to AI, I think the benefits of AI are far too obvious, right? And AI permeates every single space of what we do. But in our business, empathy and a healing touch are equally critical, because when customers call you, they basically call you for, when they're in bad times, and they need, that human support at that time. So the whole perspective is, how do we ensure that, we leverage AI, but with this born again, with the focus on this born again human skill of empathy. So I think if we can get that combination absolutely right, I think it just explode in this entire industry.
That's amazing. I mean, servicing is so core to, I mean, not just this, many other industries too. And then even traditional industries that were not, that was like away from customers through, a distribution channel or somebody, they all have to now pay attention to really understand the customer and then provide that direct servicing to them. I think that's a really good call out. Okay. One other question, and then we'll get to some rapid fire question, right? One quick,
Sure.
quick question on this is India, right? So India is, I think what COVID-19 did, geographically, is remove the geography requirement for economic activity as a whole, like from a worldwide perspective, right? And then all of a sudden, I was talking to some friends back in southern India yesterday, and code is the common language right now. So there's a lot of you don't need to know like different languages to speak as long as you can speak it through your code and stuff. Give us a view of like I know that India has gone through a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years, right? Um, but the resilience is just really awe-inspiring from the people. So, give us a view of India technology talent, if you will, and what do you think of when you see the market today and going forward?
Yeah. Firstly, I think Ganesh, India is the hub, when it comes to usage of technology as well as the availability of talent. Right? We've seen so many Indian firms from here go and make an impact globally, right? And India has always been the been the place for talent, right? Which is why we have a lot of back offices in India as well. And I think clearly talent availability in India I think has been amazing, right? I think that's something which is a well established fact. Secondly, coming to the usage of AI, I think what happened with India, right? Like we all have seen, India's leapfrogged several evolutionary stages, right? So therefore today, and India's mobile country, right? People use mobiles. So today, what is happening is because of the availability of mobiles, right, and the availability of the internet, and the availability of even multilingual versions of digital apps and various other tools, I think India has exploded. In fact, you may be surprised to know that when Allianz had a global conference, and we had people from all over the world, and I had gone there to showcase our digital capabilities, including AI. Pretty much people were learning from us, right? And one thing, and I must mention one thing. Very often, people ask, saying that, okay, fine, is this a POC, or is this the pilot of a small group of customers? And then when I tell folks, that our customer base, could be bigger than your country's population, then they realize, right, that it's happening at scale. And I think going forward, Ganesh, I think there are two, three aspects which will kick in. One is multilingual, because obviously in India, people speak multiple languages. And we've had one success story here. We launched an app exclusively in Indian languages for farmers, and it turned out to be a major hit. It just shows, how you can digitize even in rural areas. And the other is in India, sometimes given the variation in bandwidth, it also calls for maybe versions of apps. Maybe you have a light version in some places, and maybe you have an enhanced version in some places. So I think India's rocking it from a usage as well as a talent point of view.
Absolutely. I think Deepu, you touched upon something, I grew up in India, so near and dear to me, right? I always felt that we really used like India historically, the population was used as a talent pool for providing back office and other services. But the vibrancy come in when more and more people are coming online. The for technologies like AI, you need a lot of data, and there's a lot of
Yes.
people. So now, as an addressable market where people are consuming these services, I mean, I think it's like it's even more from a cultural diversity perspective. It's way more diverse than China, right? For that perspective, and then from the availability of talent, I think the golden era of India is ahead of us, and I do believe that it's already been a golden era, but I think it's going to just even go bigger. No, Deepu, thank you for your thoughts here. I have a couple of very quick rapid fire questions, okay, and
Sure.
then we'll get your thoughts on it. Okay, artificial general intelligence (AGI), machines taking over the world. Do you fear it? Do you worry about it? What worries you in it, if you do?
Well, I don't fear it, Ganesh, because I think the benefits are far too obvious. As I mentioned earlier, we just need to ensure that the human touch is aligned with it, and then I think we are on.
You're on. Okay, one personal question, Deepu.
Sure.
What is one practice that you do every day or often that keeps you at the top of your game?
Yeah. Good question, Ganesh. And I think, one thing, this goes back to my learning, on day one at work. The one question I ask myself every day, is your job driving you, or are you driving your job? And I think in that one question, I figure out my answers. And I think that's what drives you to be different and, stay ahead of the game.
Amazing, amazing, Dipu. Thank you for that. How can the viewers and listeners get in touch with you online? Where can they find you online?
Yeah. So I think, people who want to connect with me are free to do so using social media. I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So social media, people can connect, and always happy to share knowledge.
Awesome. Dipu, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. Fantastic discussion, and I'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ganesh. And I think, your warmth and, your easy flow, made it very easy for me to feel absolutely natural. So thank you so much.
No, it's a great conversation. Thank you so much. I'm sure everybody who's listening in can really see the depth at which, you're making it sound so simple, and I can only imagine how hard it is to pull each one of those things in there. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and your experience here.
Thanks, Ganesh. I think if I've been able to make it feel, look simple, then I think I've done my job.